The Schilling Show into our final segment here, and welcoming back a frequent guest over the years. Daniel Miller is the president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and today's topic is outsiders meddling and interfering in Texas gun policy. And Daniel is rightfully upset, and maybe even beyond that. I'd say he's probably mad as hell, and rightfully so. Daniel, welcome back to the Schilling Show.
Hey, Rob, thanks for having me.
It's good to have you with us. Now, there have recently been incidents in Texas, gun-related incidents, in which national pundits, Hollywood people, politicians, and others have been weighing in on Texas business, and I wanted to get your take on all this.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, and obviously I'm sure what prompted this was this open letter, but it just seems like over these past few years, whether it be the school shooting in Santa Fe, the church shooting in Sutherland Springs, or what happened in El Paso, and more recently in Odessa and Midland, it seems that every time there's a tragedy, the pundits, the politicians can't wait to politicize our pain. I can, if you look at what happened in El Paso, you still had literally bodies on the ground. Mm-hmm. And all of these non-Texan politicians, from the Bernie Sanders to the Kamala Harris, to all of these other politicians from places that are not inside of Texas, began immediately to lecture Texans on what it is that we should be doing, insinuating that our belief in the fundamental right to keep and bear arms somehow made us morally inferior to them. And, this, for me, this most recent shooting in Midland and Odessa is really just the straw that broke the camel's back, and I felt like something had to be said.
Tell us a little bit more about this letter and how it came to national prominence, because I think, this was the letter, unfortunately. I mean, maybe the governor should have written this letter. I'm glad that you stepped up and did it, and it shows a tremendous amount of leadership on your part. But my goodness, you're the only one saying this.
Yeah, it's the letter really just came about out of the frustration. Our organization represents about a little over 380,000 declared supporters, which makes us the largest political organization in Texas outside of the two major political parties. And I know that our supporters are frustrated, and I know that our voice is not just the voice of those who have declared support, but really, the thousands, hundreds of thousands of Texans that we have connected with over our time and working on Texas. And so it was just time for someone to stand up and say something for these people that are unrepresented. We're in a situation here in Texas where Democrats, progressives, and socialists look at Texas as the crown jewel, and they're dumping enormous amounts of money into Texas campaigns in an attempt to change how Texas is governed. But the challenge here is that so many of these national policies that they're trying to shove down Texans' throats have been tried and have been shown as utter and abject failures in other places. So, my feeling, which is the feeling of so many other Texans, is don't come lecture us about how to handle our right to keep and bear arms when the poster child for your policies is Chicago. When Alyssa Milano and Bette Midler and all of these other Hollywood elites and politicians decide that they want to judge us for our fundamental right to keep and bear arms, how about they start talking about what's happening in Chicago? And I even allude to that there is a very high potential that the reason that they're not drawing attention to Chicago or that shooting at the football game that I believe was in Alabama is that at their very core, they're really just latent racists. What is it about Texas that makes them feel like they are justified in telling us how we should run our lives? They don't understand Texas, much like they really don't understand any other states. The fact is that they want to use the federal government to implement policies that obviously do not work, and some sort of progressive, proto-Marxist theory that they just happen to drum up on the back of a cocktail napkin at the red carpet of the Oscars.
You're exactly right. We're talking with Daniel Miller, the president of the Texas Nationalist Movement. Before we go, and I've got just a little over a minute here, I want to hear how things are coming along with Texas. We talked to you when the book came out, and of course over the years on the concept of Texas becoming an independent nation. How are things going?
Well, I will tell you, our support continues to grow. Declarations of support pour in every single solitary day, more volunteers, more members. But we have a battle on our hands. This idea that these folks from outside of Texas can come in and influence our elections is going to come to a head. We're reaping what happened in this last midterm election, and they're already pumping far more money into this election cycle. So we have a battle on our hands. For us to advance Texas, we're going to have to first take Texas back.
Yeah, it's very distressing to see what's going on, and I'm watching from afar. I'm watching the refugees out of California, where I fled from 21 years ago as a political refugee, seeing the writing on the wall. But, people coming to places that are essentially free and then, enjoying the lower taxation and bringing in the bad politics that they're fleeing from. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it's got to be distressing to you.
Well, it is troubling. In the last election cycle, Eric Holder, Obama's former attorney general, dumped $250,000 into state house races. Mm-hmm. That's just the tip of the iceberg. George Soros dumped about $1 million in local judicial races. Mm-hmm. So, we're facing an onslaught from outside of Texas that ultimately wants to change the face of who we are. At the very root of all of this, I firmly believe is an attempt to rewrite our culture and erase the spirit of independence from Texans. And we're going to, as the Texas Nationalist Movement, going to continue to stand against this, and we're going to fight this thing out. We're going to fight it out in the ballot box. We're going to fight it out in the legislature, and we're going to say Texas.
We're glad you're there and you're doing what you're doing. Daniel Miller, if people want to get a copy of your book, text it, or if they want to be in touch with the Texas Nationalist Movement, would you tell us how, please?
Sure. You can visit our website at tnm.me. That's tnm.me. And, of course, text is available there or any of the major book retailers. Amazon actually has it, I think, for a little over $4 right now. So it's a great time to pick up the book.
Indeed it is. Daniel Miller, thank you once again for joining us today on The Schilling Show.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. My goodness, I stand with him and what they're trying to do in Texas. I wish we had a similar movement here in Virginia. Unfortunately, we're heading in the wrong direction.